The Baltimore Orioles had a very, very successful 2023 season as they went 101 and 61, carrying over the success from 2022, and they won the AL East. However, the season did not end in necessarily great happiness for the Baltimore Orioles as they lost in the American League Division Series. And that was their season kind of over. That was the season, well, not kind of over, it was over. But there's still a lot of bright spots coming out of the Orioles from 2023 moving into 2024, and there's a lot to cover on this fun, young, and exciting Baltimore team. So without any further ways, you're watching Bleacher, Brawls. My name is Derek. I am here with Pat, and let's dive straight into this Baltimore Orioles team profile. First things first, let's talk about some of the key players this Orioles team has. A lot of key players, a lot of them are young, but a lot of them are also still really good even with their young age. I'll hand it over to Pat first. Who are three key players for this Baltimore team? And out of those three, which one do you think will have the biggest impact, or who do you just want to talk about?
Sure. Yeah, I want to mention. I think because they had the Rookie of the Year last year in Gunnar Henderson. I think that bizarrely Adley Rutschman has been kind of glossed over. He also went a little sophomore slumpy last year. I don't think he quite had the bat that many of us think that he can have, and so I just want to highlight him and don't forget that this team has Adley Rutschman, who, if he's not the best catcher in the game, is going to be very, very soon. I also want to mention the fact that with Felix Bautista being out, they brought in Craig Kimbrell, which we're going to talk a little bit about later in our offseason moves. But they still have an established closer in the back of the bullpen. Who knows how much juice Kimbrell has in him, but he is there. He's a guy with experience with a team, for a team with not a ton of playoff experience. I mean, we saw that they just looked, scared out of their minds last year in that Texas series. And then the third name that I want to bring up, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Derek. When we did our Diamondbacks profile last year, if you remember, I threw you this question. I said, is Corbin Carroll going to be on this team on opening day? And I'll give you the same question for this Orioles team this year, which is Jackson Holliday going to be the starting shortstop for the Baltimore Orioles on opening day this year?
I think it's a little bit blurrier than the Corbin Carroll question. Last year, I was 100% locked in on Corbin Carroll. I think it all depends on Jackson Holliday's spring training, if I'm going to be honest, because there was talk last year that, they might bring him up in September. That's how wacky the talk was on Jackson Holliday last year. So, here's what I'll say. Don't be shocked if he makes the big league roster, but don't be shocked if he gets sent back to AAA and there for a month or so. And if he rakes in AAA, he'll be up sooner rather than later. Right now, I'd lean towards them playing it a little safe with him, just because you do have Jorge Mateo who can play short, and Gunnar Henderson split his time between short and third last year, so they're capable, right? So I'd the slightest lean towards no, but don't be shocked if he tears it up in spring training and makes the roster.
Yeah, I feel similarly. I think that I don't think he'll be there on day one, but I do think he'll be there in May. I think it'll be roughly the same time that we saw Adley a couple years ago. Adley was also dealing with an injury, so he got pushed back even a little further, but yeah, they have Ramon Arias still. They have Jorge Mateo. These are not pieces. I mean, I like Arias, but these are not pieces I would want to play every day all season long. But for a month, they can patch it together. I mean, Jorge Mateo was one of the best players in the league for the first month last year. So, yeah, I think that they're going to want to get him some more regular ABs in Norfolk and let him build his confidence up a little bit.
Yeah, he definitely flew through the minors, so it's there is a little bit of do you want to do too much too quickly with him? He's still so young. Jackson Holliday is at 20, just turned 20 somewhat recently, not long ago either. For me, when I'm looking at the key players, I think Adley Rutschman's obviously key. We didn't talk about Kyle Bradish. I think that's a name that's still overlooked by a lot of people because he pitched for the Orioles last year, had a very solid year. Even I overlooked him at times throughout last year because I'm it's the Orioles, you're in a good ballpark, which, I mean, that is fair. That ball hit the left field, that thing's really got to go now to get out. But, he still had a very good year. You can't doubt the fact that he had a good year. But I think the key one for me here is Gunnar Henderson, and I think it is because of the Jackson Holliday situation. Gunnar Henderson last year split his innings almost evenly between shortstop and second base. He only played 10 more innings last year at third base than he did at shortstop. 594 and two-thirds innings at third base, 584 and two-thirds at shortstop. However, he was a plus defender at both. He was actually a better defensive player at shortstop based on defensive metrics. 10 defensive runs saved, no outs above average at short. 3 defensive runs saved and 1 outs above average at third base. He's still solid at both spots, but like he can give you plus defense at short if you need it. But then he can also slide over to third and be a good defensive third baseman as well, all while still being a very, very solid hitter at the plate. And you look at his year last year, and 123 weighted runs created plus in 150 games. Like stellar year, 4.6 F4. Just 28 homers too. Like in what was his rookie year, just from a guy who's a shortstop and is really good. Even at third base, that's solid, right? Because we think third base power position, but like 28 homers, this is very solid. So for me, I think Gunnar Henderson is massive for this team, and he kind of helps their Jackson Holiday decision because Gunnar Henderson could play shortstop every single day. You have Jordan Westberg who can play second, maybe third occasionally. So it doesn't have to be a necessarily we're sticking Jorge Mateo at shortstop every day until Jackson Holiday's ready. Gunnar Henderson helps that a lot, and I think they don't have to rush Jackson Holiday because of that. But if he's ready, yeah, bring him up. But we do want to move to offseason moves now because the Orioles, they haven't made a ton of offseason moves, but I think they made some pretty impactful ones. Most recently, the Corbin Burnes trade, as of recording, very recent. They traded DL Hall, Joey Ortiz, and a competitive balanced round A pick for Corbin Burnes. And the other kind of big move is the signing of Craig Kimbrell. So I'll hand it back over to you, Pat. What move, which one of those two do you want to talk about? Whether most influential, move you like the most, or is there something that, not those two moves that you like the Orioles did? Maybe, I don't know, selling the team maybe? That's also an option?
Yeah, that's a pretty good move too. I think, excuse me, with a former ownership group in the Angeles who had basically no interest in spending any money, and now having one of the richest owners in the league. They're a team that's been this good and this cheap. When they start spending some money, if that's their plan, they're going to be really scary. I'm going to go with Corbin Burnes. I feel like they gave up nothing for him. I really feel like they fleeced Milwaukee here. DL Hall, a good pitcher, had his moments. Do not get me wrong, but he's not going to be a Corbin Burnes. I'm not concerned about Joey Ortiz, and draft picks are lottery tickets. So I really think that they got away with one on this one. I agree with Bradish. Bradish finished 4th in the Cy Young voting this year. Like he had a really great season, but to that playoff inexperience point, do you want to give Kyle Bradish the ball in Game 1 of an ALCS? I don't know. He's still young. He's still kind of green. He is a great pitcher though, and I don't think he'll regress in any way. I think that's who he is, but. Not the guy I think I want to hand it to. Corbin Burnes is the guy I want to hand it to. He's been historically healthy. If he continues to stay healthy, I think he's going to be a real weapon for them. And he needs a contract, and I think it's going to be a team ready to dish out some contracts. So I think it's very likely that you'll see him in an Orioles uniform for a long time.
Yeah, so I think the trade is interesting. I'll just kind of add on real quick on that, and the fact that Joey Ortiz, he's a shortstop, second baseman, third baseman kind of mix. He can kind of play all 3 spots, but like that's so crowded for Baltimore, especially if you're considering Jackson Holiday. There are rumors that he could make the Brewers opening day roster, which would be great for him, but like he doesn't really fit for Baltimore, especially if Jackson Holiday is going to be on the big league roster. And then you look at DL Hall, like the Orioles had him relieving. It seems like the Brewers maybe are going to try and move him back to the starter, which is interesting. Maybe the Brewers value him a lot higher. And then the draft is cool. For me, though, I think Craig Kimbrell is kind of the move I want to key in on because the loss of Felix Bautista is huge. It's huge. It's the bullpen that when you look at it, and you look at just like name power, like Felix Bautista, even though he's a great closer, doesn't really have like name power in some sense for like the casual fan. And like Yanier Cano is like like as good as he was last year, it is only 1 year, right? He could very well fall back down to earth, right? So you never know with stuff like that. So I think bringing in a proven guy, Craig Kimbrell, is he as good as a Felix Bautista? No, but he's got experience and whatnot. And I think that bringing him on a 1 year deal, it's a nice little piece of business. Is it gonna massively move the needle? And No, because compared to a healthy Felix Bautista, healthy Felix Bautista is one of the best closers in baseball. But I think Kimbrel helps reassure their bullpen, and Kimbrel gets to likely return to a ninth inning role, which he didn't get to do this past year. So I think for Kimbrel to be better. But I think that's what I want to key on. Final part here, expectations for 2024. What do you have, Pat?
Yeah, so they want to win playoff games. I think the division, as great as it would be, I think less important to them. It always kind of seemed not that important to them this year, that they were just trying to chug along to the playoffs, and then winning the division was that fantastic, kind of they got that first round bye and stuff. But they got to win playoff games. They looked just mortified against Texas last year. And I think it's a consolation prize that team goes on to win the World Series. If I'm going to lose to someone, I want it to be the team that beats every other team. Some people don't feel that way. I don't know if the Orioles feel that way. They got to win playoff games. They've been there now. A lot of those guys have been there now. Kimbrel now becomes the most, experienced guy on the team. He also is a little playoff shaky, as we know, being Red Sox fans from his 2018 run, which was just terrifying after 6 months of domination in the regular season. So they got to win some playoff games. I don't know if they're going to go World Series or bust. I think that's a little dramatic. These guys are going to be around for a while. I think they need to continue to build. But an ALCS appearance, something like that, I think that's where they need to find themselves this year.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the expectation is for them to make a deep postseason run. That should be their expectation. And so I totally agree with that. And I think that's a great place to end it. So for Pat, my name is Derek. Thanks for tuning in to Bleacher Brawls. Make sure to check out all our other team profiles and whatnot. Check out all the links in our description. Thanks for tuning in. Orioles fans, let us know your thoughts in the comments. And we will see you next time.